our presenter is Dr. Hichem Khlif. Dr. Hichem Khlif is the Associate Professor of Accounting in the Faculty of Economy and Management in University of Sfax in Tunisia. His research focus are disclosure, meta-analysis, and tax evasion. He has published many articles in international ranked journal such as Australian Journal of Management, International Journal of Accounting, Journal of Accounting Literature, and Journal of International Accounting. This seminar, it will take around between 45 to 1 hour. I know it's a tough seminar or tough topic, Dr. Hichem, but I think you will be great. And after that, we'll open the floor for questions for between 15 and 30 minutes. And that's it. Thank you, Dr. Hichem, for accepting my invitation, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Director Ahmad, participants in this webinar. Many thanks to join us to share some knowledge about meta-analysis. Okay. I will try in this meta-analysis, for sure it is entitled Meta-Analytic Research in Accounting, but I will try in the meantime to extend things to cover and this presentation may be extended to management, marketing, and other fields in management and economics. Okay, thus let's begin with the definition of meta-analysis. Meta-analysis is a tool used to summarize in a statistic way a set of articles dealing with the same topic in one stream of research. Okay. Meta-analysis gives the opportunity for a researcher to go beyond narrative summary, narrative conclusion, to draw logical conclusion and maybe trace some policy implications, especially when we have conflicting results. Okay, thus the basic point here that we need to understand that we have three common ways to summarize a research topic or a research stream. The first is to undertake a literature review. If you want to go through a clear protocol and clear steps, we undertake systematic reviews, and in the two cases, either literature review or systematic review, conclusion will be narrative. And especially when we have conflicting results, for example, in one topic we have positive association, negative associations, and insignificant association, it is always difficult for a researcher to say whether or not the association is significant or not. Okay, this is why meta-analysis represents a statistic tool to complement these two ways to summarize a research stream. Well, what are the main differences between literature review and systematic review? For literature reviews, we have to summarize a research topic, but we enjoy some freedom in the way that we are going to tackle a research topic to summarize it, okay, by identifying paper, collecting studies, and so on and so forth. And at the end, usually researcher present a summary and a critical analysis of the topic, so that they identify future research perspectives. But when it comes to systematic review, here we have a clear protocol that we need to follow step by step. We need to explain clearly how we having the criteria used to include or to exclude studies. Then we need to summarize the theoretical background and all theory used to examine one research stream. Then the main methodologies in terms of regression and so on and so forth. Finally, we try to summarize our research study in a table, but always these two techniques have weaknesses, since, as I have said, when we have mixed results, conflicting results, it is always difficult to say the association is significant and in what direction and so on and so forth. And the best way to undertake a meta-analysis and the best motivation to conduct a meta-analysis is to read clearly and to understand and to identify in a literature review or in a systematic review a clear statement that indicates that this research topic provides mixed results, conflicting results. And this is the starting point to undertake a meta-analysis. And always in the introduction, once we need to conduct a meta-analysis, we need to motivate the fact and to say it clearly. This research topic is, we don't have a clear idea about the results. We have mixed results. We have positive associations, negative associations, and non-significant associations. This is why, if we identify this, that I can say here that literature review, systematic review may represent an excellent starting point if the author summarizing one research topic stated clearly that this or another research topic we have an clear evidence. And here meta-analysis comes to overcome these weaknesses and to try to summarize in a statistic way to find out figures that will indicate whether the association is negative and significant, positive and significant, or insignificant. And then it offers to researcher the possibility to undertake moderating effect, moderating tests. Okay. I should here highlight the fact that in accounting, for example, there has been an increasing trend in the number of studies published with respect to meta-analysis. Of course, meta-analysis is a technique highly used in medical research, in psychology, in management in general, and in accounting, it is a new technique. I give you here an example. Nowadays, we have a high and very large number of studies published with respect to COVID-19, medical treatment, and preventive actions, okay? In front of this high number of studies published, it will be difficult for a scientific community to understand whether or not this treatment, the other treatment, this preventive action, and so on and so forth. Thus, normally we have to expect a meta-analytic research in this regard to try to reconcile between conflicting findings and help scientific community in medical field to find out solution and find out clear recommendation. I go back to the trend of meta-analytic research in accounting. I have for sure conducted a review regarding meta-analytic research in accounting, and over the period of 1985 and 2014, as you can see, the trend was an increasing trend, and especially for 2013, 2014, the number of studies has stabilized between 4 and 3 studies, and nowadays meta-analytic research is highly accepted in A-ranked and sometimes in A-star ranked journals. Okay. Now I will just briefly review the most well-cited paper with respect to meta-analysis. We have the most cited paper with respect to disclosure, voluntary disclosure in annual report. We have the paper of Professor Ahmad and Curtis, published in the British Accounting Review. We have also another paper dealing with corporate governance attribute and earning management, published in Corporate Governance in International Review. And the most cited paper within meta-analytic research in accounting is the paper dealing with audit fees and the determinant of audit fees, published by Professor David Hay et al. In 2006. In contemporary accounting research with 1,431 citation until today. Okay. Thus, now we are going to go and to present the main steps to conduct meta-analysis. And here we deal with technical aspects. When conducting a meta-analysis, as I have said, the starting point is to identify a research topic with inconclusive results. You may ask me, but are we going to extend or to identify it? The essential thing, if you are going, for example, to undertake now a meta-analysis with respect to disclosure, we are not going to repeat the same thing. We have our study or our meta-analytic project should have its own feature, its own contribution, either in terms of moderating effect, or I identify a new research or a new hot research topic, and it is preferable that this research topic is an empirical, since we need to compute effect size and so on and so forth. That the first step is to try to identify a fruitful research area and formulate a problem. As I have said, we need a fruitful research area with conflicting results. When I say conflicting results, if I have, for example, 25 studies published or unpublished, published, unpublished, and so on and so forth, those 25 studies have reported, some studies have reported positive association, some others have reported insignificant association, and the remaining studies have reported insignificant association or a negative association, sorry. Okay, this is what we mean a fruitful research area, and this will give rise to the utility and the contribution of a meta-analysis. Since for this research area, if I will conduct a systematic review or a literature review, I will say at the end, this stream of research we have mixed results, and I cannot make any conclusion. This is and here come the importance and the utility of meta-analysis to overcome and to draw logical conclusions that may be helpful to trace policy implication and maybe managerial implication beyond and for sure some implication for future research for academic community. Okay, then the second step is data collection. We are going to collect a set of study dealing with the same topic. For example, here, let's say in the paper of dealing with board independence and earning management. Okay, and here we are going to see whether or not the association is mixed. If it is mixed, I'm going to collect the maximum number of studies dealing with this topic. Of course, using keywords and so on and so forth, like earning management, real earning management, why not? Okay, and board independence or board composition in general, and earning management. Then a data set preparation, I have to prepare to compute effect size and so on and so forth. Data analysis, and finally the interpretation and discussion of the results. Okay. Thus, step one, identification of verbiage for research area and problem formulation. The first thing to say in the introduction and for a meta-analytic paper that we aim to publish in a journal, we should highlight in the first paragraph of the introduction that the association is mixed. We are dealing with a research topic where the association is mixed, and we are aiming to reconcile results, and we need to provide evidence. We need to see 2 or 3 studies with positive association, 2 or 3 studies with negative association, and some studies with insignificant association to convince a reviewer and the reader in general that really this topic is characterized by mixed evidences. Here, well-defined research area like earning management nowadays, real earning management, audit fees, disclosure, of course, voluntary disclosure, intellectual capital disclosure, social and environmental disclosure, mandatory disclosure, audit opinion. But we should make sure here that it is an empirical study, first of all, and that the studies use a common methodology which are close. Okay, for example, regression, they present same table regarding person correlation, Spearman correlation, and so on and so forth. Okay, researchers need to demonstrate, of course, the existence of conflicting empirical evidence in relation to research question. And as I have said, meta-analysis will seek to reconcile between conflicting results in order to draw conclusion and trace clear research implication for policymaker, why not managerial implication, and of course future research perspectives. Data collection. Now we need to identify keywords. For example, if I will say, let's say, audit opinion and cost of finance. If I say audit opinion, I will put audit opinion and cost of debt. I will put audit opinion and cost of equity capital. I will put audit opinion and cost of capital in general, okay? In Google Scholar and so on and so forth. Once I identify 5 or 6 studies dealing with this topic, I will go through the references in these studies to identify other studies published, and it is preferable always to tell the reader about the pioneering work concerning a research topic. Okay, I mean here the first work published in this research topic, and we have to go through all editorial source, including Elsevier, Blackwell, Wiley, Emerald, Sage Publisher, and SSRN, of course, and I have to mix published and unpublished studies, and I have to collect all kinds of study regardless the quality of the journal, whether the journal is some researchers, for example, prefer to include only a paper published in A-star journals, and this may A-star, A journal, and B journal. This may introduce a bias in the analysis. Of course, these studies went through a rigorous review process, but we need to include published and unpublished studies regardless the quality of journal, since later on we have to conduct moderating effect dealing with this aspect, the quality of the paper. Okay. As I have said here, data collection, some study focus only in published papers in academic peer-reviewed journals. This may introduce a bias. Author justify this choice by the fact that the results in these journals are more credible. I do agree with this, but since we have a robustness check dealing with publication quality later on, we need always to include all study to increase our sample of studies so that we get more evidence, and then we go back to meta-analyze or subgroup our meta-analytic sample into a high-ranked journal, decent journal, other journals, and maybe, and why not, unpublished studies, okay? When I say high-ranked journal, it is A and A-star. When the other decent journal, B and C journal, other journals, and of course, unpublished studies. Although generally, we identify them in SSRN database and so on and so forth. Data preparation, and here comes the most important proxy and variable. Once we are going to prepare a meta-analysis, here we calculate the effect size, which is a very interesting variable when it comes to meta-analysis. Effect size is an index used to represent and standardize the finding of study included in the meta-analysis. In a meta-analysis in general, it provides information about the magnitude of the association between the dependent variable and explanatory variable for each study. The effect size metric are commonly used in some studies, standardized mean difference, correlational metrics, and odds ratio. In general, in accounting, generally, we focus in correlational meta-analytic. And here we use person correlation, T statistic, Z statistic. In medical, psychology, and sociology research, we can find several studies. We can find several studies using standardized mean difference, odds ratio, and so on and so forth. But in accounting, generally, we focus and use correlational metrics. When I say correlational metrics, I mean here person correlation, Spearman correlation, T statistic, Z statistic, and so on and so forth. Effect size are obtaining either from inferential statistic or probability level. If the paper here, we need to examine the paper, we need to go through the paper and understand how authors have presented their results. Some authors use the classic way of presentation. I mean here, a descriptive statistic, univariate analysis, multivariate analysis. Here it is very good. Thus, I go directly to person correlation and I use it. Person correlation, of course, between the dependent variable, for example, voluntary disclosure, and burden dependence, okay? But if the author, the published paper does not use this classic way, here we need to go to a regression, and in regression we will find t-statistic if it is a multiple regression analysis, z-statistic if it is logistic regression, or sometimes author puts only asterisks 1 or 2 or 3 to indicate the level of significance. And if we find only the probability level, we need to use tables to convert probability level and to find out t-statistic or z-statistic, and then using this formula, we convert t or z values to an effect size. If we have, for example, t-statistic, we convert it into a person correlation as follows: t square plus the root square of t square divided by t square plus degree of freedom. Of course, degree of freedom is the number of parameters to be estimated in a model minus degree of freedom is the sample size minus the number of parameters to be estimated in one model. And if we have a logistic regression, it will be z divided by the root square of n, which is the sample size. You may ask me one question about the first equation, the root square of t squared divided by t squared plus degree of freedom. It is always positive. How we will do, and if we are going to take all, we convert them using this formula, all effect sizes will be positive. Here we need to conserve the economic meaning of the effect size. Like for the regression, we need to take the sign of the estimated parameter and put it before this formula. Thus, if for the estimated parameter it is positive, we keep it as it is. If it is negative, we need to add a minus sign to reflect the economic sense of the association. Thus, if we have now computed our effect size, we have the sample size, we are going to prepare our database. And of course, meta-analysis, the beautiful thing in meta-analysis is the identification of potential moderators. And here we move from overall meta-analysis to subsample meta-analysis to identify potential moderators. And when I say moderators, moderators can be linked to measurement of dependent variable, measurement of independent variable, legal characteristic, time period, model used, let's say political corruption, level of long-term orientation, cultural dimension, and so on and so forth, okay? Thus, the identification of potential moderator is generally based in previous narrative review, methodological review, and cross-country study conducted with respect to specific accounting stream of research. Of course, a stream of specific accounting stream of research, or specific accounting management research, or specific marketing stream of research. Thus, if you want to conduct a meta-analysis, you need to read a lot, some papers, let's say some papers dealing with the same topic, and why not, if there are literature review, methodological review, you have to read them, since they will help you and assist you when stating your hypothesis concerning moderating effects. Identification of potential moderators, as I have said, potential moderating variable identified within a meta-analytic literature include variable measurement for either dependent or independent explanatory variables. For example, here for earning management, we have a lot of models, used joins, modified joins, did show it all, and so on and so forth. Real earning management, okay. For example, for size, corporate size, we have a lot of proxies used here, like total assets, market capitalization, total say, number of employees, and so on and so forth. Firm characteristics, industry, country, time period. For example, in one of my meta-analysis, I have considered the period before Enron scandal and the period before after Enron scandals. Okay, models, whether or not we use logistic, multiple regression, whether the author use simultaneous equation approach to control for endogeneity, and so on and so forth. And finally, legal and institutional feature characteristics of the research setting, like legal enforcement, legal system, investor protection, culture dimension, score, for example, for individualism, score attributed by Hofstede framework for long-term orientation, especially when it comes to social and environmental disclosure, social and environmental expenditure, and so on and so forth. Of course, this moderating effects or moderators can be used either for accounting literature, marketing, management, and so on and so forth. Now, for data analysis, we have three main approaches or methodology that can be used to analyze studies, to analyze the results of studies. We have Hunter et al. And the most sophisticated technique, Hunter and Schmidt 2000. Lipsy and Wilson, well, it's not well used in accounting, within accounting literature, and only one study published in European Accounting Review that I will tell you about at the end of this presentation. And the Stafford approach, which is highly used approach also, and the paper, the most cited paper within accounting literature, which is the paper of Professor David Hay, has used such an approach. Let's begin with Hunter et al. And Hunter et Schmidt. Of course, now we use the approach of Hunter and Schmidt 2000, since it is more sophisticated. The first step suggests that we should derive the population mean correlation by computing an average correlation error, which is calculated as per equation 1, as you have seen. The summation of Ri, Ni, it means effect size for study EI, multiplied by the sample size of study I, divided by the summation of sample size, okay? Where Ni is the sample size for study I and Ri is the percent correlation for the study I. Then we compute in a classic way the observed variance, okay? And the sampling error variance, okay? And finally, the variance used to estimate the confidence interval is is S, the observed variance divided by the number of study, which is K. The estimates of population mean and the standard deviation are normally used to construct a 95% confidence interval. 95% confidence interval, it means that we use T statistic which is equal to 1.95. 1.95, okay? This is the first approach. Well, the second approach, as I have said, it's not well used within accounting literature. In this technique, we are going to standardize the effect size as the 0.5 log of 1 plus R divided by 1 minus R. Then we compute the effect size, the mean effect size, as shown in equation 4. And finally, we evaluate the significance of the association as shown in equation 6 by dividing the effect size, the average effect size, by the standard error of effect size as shown in equation 5. As I have said, this approach has only been used in one study, and I will let you know about it at the end of this presentation. Stafford approach, this is a very interesting approach, and I urge you either, I urge you and advise you, and I advise you to go through the first or this approach. In step 1, we are going to take a reverse road here. I mean here, if we have T statistic percent coefficient, we are going to convert them into p-value, and then in Z statistic, okay, using table or some softwares that are available in internet. Then the researcher compute the weighted ZC using the following equation. ZC, we are going to make a summation of degree of freedom multiplied by Z for each study divided by the summation, the square root of the summation of degree of freedom squared, okay, for each study. And here, for this approach, in step 2, we are going to compute the fail-safe N. What is the fail-safe N? Well, in meta-analysis, when we compute mean effect size, we are going to compute Z statistic and the confidence interval to judge whether or not the association is significant or not. Of course, if the confidence interval includes 0 value, the association is not significant. If Z statistic computed is not significant, thus the overall association is not significant. But if the confidence interval does not include 0 and Z statistic is significant, I should find another way or another robustness test to say whether or not the association is sensitive, or maybe this association will become insignificant after adding 5 or 6 studies. This is not good. This is why we need to compute what we call the fail-safe N. The fail-safe N is the number of studies needed so that the association, if it is significant, it will become insignificant. Okay, and the greater we find, the higher this number will be, the more significant the association will be. Okay, for example, if the fail-safe N for a significant association is 2,000 what? 2,000 studies. This means that I need 2,000 studies that report insignificant association so that this association will become insignificant. And this is very interesting indicators about the robustness of one association. Of course, when I compute the fail-safe n, I should compare it to a critical n, which is equal to 5 multiplied by k, which is the number of studies plus 10. Okay? Now, to test for moderator, I should compute a chi-square statistic. A chi-square statistic is an indicator to say whether or not the association is significant, or to say whether or not we need to move from overall meta-analysis to subsample meta-analysis. If chi-square statistic is insignificant at 5% significant level, this means that the association is unmoderated and homogeneous. But if the chi-square statistic computed as indicated in the formulas for Hunter and Lipsey and Wilson is significant, we need to move from overall meta-analysis. When I say overall meta-analysis, I mean the summary of all studies to subsample meta-analysis to study moderating effects. Note here that there is no suggested test for the Stafford et al. Stafford approach like for Hunter and Lipsey and Wilson 2001. Okay, thus I need for each summarize it for the overall sample, I need to compute the chi-square statistics so that I judge whether or not my association, when it is significant, it is unmoderated and homogeneous, or I need, if the chi-square statistic is significant, I need to undertake more subsample analysis to keep things, to make things more homogeneous. Okay, thus the beautiful thing in meta-analysis is to find out an association which is significant with high fail-safe n and unmoderated. And in this case, I can say that this association is positive and significant, or it is negative and significant. Of course, here the chi-square statistic is an efficient test for homogeneity, and it allows us to go from overall meta-analysis to subsample meta-analysis and to test for moderator and to try to reduce homogeneity across studies. Okay? Then I move to file drawer problem, in which we are going to compute the fail-safe n. In Stafford, as I have explained earlier, in the Stafford approach, directly after computing the effect size, we compute the fail-safe n. But in the remaining approach, Hunter and Lipsey and Wilson 2001, we need to compute the fail-safe n using the following formula as indicated. Okay, and as I have said, the fail-safe n is an excellent indicator and helpful indicator to tell us that this association, for example, if I find in my meta-analysis I have collected 45 studies, and I find that the association is significant. Okay, when I determine the fail-safe n, I find that I need only 4 studies so that the association become insignificant. This is not good. As a robustness test, this indicates that the association is not very robust. But if for this association with 45 studies, which is significant. When I say significant, confidence interval does not include 0, and their statistic is significant. For this association, I find, for example, a fail-safe m that equals to 1,000. This is great. I can say that the association is significant and robust. Since I need 1,000 studies that have reported insignificant associations, so that this significant reported association in the table will be insignificant. Okay? This is for what we call file drawer problem. And for data analysis also, and I have already explained this, publication equality. Test for publication equality of studies collected, as I have said. Here, I have urged you and I advise you to include ITAR papers, A papers, B papers, C papers, other papers from other journals, and unpublished study, and then you go through a publication quality subsample analysis. I mean here, high quality paper A and A star, B and C journals, other journals, and unpublished studies. Why we should undertake this? Since A and A star journals generally go through a very rigorous review process. B, it is more strong, it is a strong review process. In C and C, it is an average review process, but in other journals, you know the rest of the story, okay? But I should also include unpublished study. This is why at the beginning, I have said that we should include all studies, all collected studies, so that we have a high number of studies. And if I have a high number of studies, automatically I will increase the statistical evidence of my results, okay? Interpretation of results, of course, we need to consider how findings, we need to consider reported results on the overall sample, in subsample, whether or not the moderating variable have affected the association. The association may be insignificant for the overall sample, and then I identify that it is significant for a subsample linked, for example, to countries that have high long-term orientation or that have a high level of investor protection, okay? And from this, I can draw conclusion that may be helpful for policy application and for researcher, for of course, to undertake future academic inquiries, and for management in general, okay? Well, for those who are interested in meta-analysis, I have to finish with very interesting, important references to consult. And I urge you to conduct meta-analytic research, since it is now well accepted in within accounting literature and within A and A star accounting journal, okay? For those who want to apply a SAFR approach, I urge them to consult and to really understand the paper of Professor David Hay et al., Audit Fees, a meta-analysis of the effect of supply and demand attributes, published in Contemporary Accounting Research in 2006. For those who are interested in the approach of Hunter and Schmidt 2000, I urge them to consult the paper of Khlif et al. 2000 and 17, ownership structure and voluntary disclosure, a synthesis of empirical studies published in Australian Journal of Management. And finally, the last approach has only been applied in one studies, which is meta-analysis and accounting literature, the case of audit committee, independence and financial reporting quality, published in 2008 in European Accounting Review. For those who are interested to consult the development in meta-analytic accounting research, and especially meta-regression now new published study use either meta-analysis and meta-regression. We use regression. We regress effect size in other moderating variable. I urge them to consult the paper of Professor Hay and Knashel, meta-regression in auditing research, evaluating the evidence, the Big N audit firm premier, auditing a journal of practice, and of course, if another paper recently published by Professor Habib et al. In International Journal of Auditing that uses meta-regression also, and I was a reviewer for this paper, determinants of audit report like meta-analysis. Of course, I urge you also to consult paper from Professor David Hay and Professor Ahsan Habib, who are well-known meta-analytic researcher worldwide. And thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hichem, for your excellent and useful presentation with this hot topic. I know many of audience want to ask a question. We can open the floor right now to any question to Dr. Hichem. Start with Ahmad Majrishi. Your mic is mute, Ahmed.
Hello.
Hello.
Yes, assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam.
Oh, thanks, Dr. Khlif and Dr. Alqatan, for your valuable presentation. My question I'm doing right now in management accounting, a PhD. Is there any recent meta-analysis studies that deal with the management accounting cases or issues?
Yes, thank you. Really, in management accounting, the number of study is not, the number of meta-analysis is not as high as expected, since, as you know, if you are a specialist in management accounting research, methodology and approach used to proxy to make data analysis is not the same. I have said from the beginning that we need to identify a research topic that uses. I will not say exactly the same approach, but a quite close methodology, so that it will be easy for us to compute effect size and so on and so forth. For management accounting research, this is the problem, and this is why sometimes we undertake a descriptive meta-analytic work. It's not either if you consult my study in Journal of Accounting Literature, a review of meta-analytic research in accounting, you will see that in management accounting research, they do not really summarize study in a statistic way, but in a descriptive way, since we don't have the same statistic methodology used within such literature, okay?
Oh, clear, yes, clear.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there any, last part, is there any references related to the management accounting, so I can deal with it easily and to connect it with the systemic review.
Keep in touch with Professor Ahmad Alqatan, and I will send him some references in this regard, so that they will be helpful for you, inshallah. Okay.
Oh, thank you so much. God bless you.
Thank you. Widad. Widad. Your mic is off, Widad. Ahmad Ali. Ahmad Ali. Professor Khalid Husseini.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you, Dr. Hichem, for the presentation. Very interesting. My question is about the validity of the meta-analysis. How can we be sure that our analysis is valid and accurate? Is there any test you recommend us to do?
Well, first of all, we have classic tests, which is the calculation of that statistic, and confidence interval, which should not include the zero value. If first of all, this is the first test, classic test. Second, another test, very interesting test, dealing with the file drawer problem, call it fail-safe N, the fail-safe N, which is computed automatically in the Stafford approach, and the two other approach we need to compute it, so that we make sure that if to try to estimate the number of studies required to reverse the association will become insignificant after how many studies, of course, that report insignificant association. This is the two of course, the two first classic tests are well known, but the fail-safe N represent a robustness check to make sure that our the significant association will not be reversed easily. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Khalid. Dr. Rami. Dr. Rami Salim.
Yeah. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
First of all, I would like to take this opportunity to thank you both, Dr. Ahmad Alqatan and Professor Hichem, for this informative seminar. And my question related to meta-analysis: is there any opportunity to deliver another seminar any time that suits you? How we could implement it practically using Stata or eViews or RViews, sorry, or any other statistical software. So to conclude this seminar and be aware of all of these steps in analyzing our data. This is my question, actually.
Yes, thank you very much. Hopefully, inshallah, we will find time to prepare all this. Inshallah, and hopefully we will try to do this. But try to be patient with me. This is the most important thing, that since I don't have a lot of time, and So many engagement at the same time.
We know how busy you are. If there is any even links from YouTube or any other channels, if you could provide them with Ahmed, and Ahmed will share them with.
Inshallah. Yes, I will do. I will do it. Inshallah. Okay.
Jazakallah khair.
Good. Good. Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Rami. Sumaya.
السلام عليكم.
عليكم السلام.
عيدكم مبارك as first. Thank you for this presentation. Appreciate your valuable information. My question is, not question, please would you explain to us the similarities between the meta-analysis and systematic analysis? That's all. Thank you.
Similarity or dissimilarity between meta-analysis and systematic analysis?
The similarities.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, for meta-analysis, as I have said, it is a statistical tool, but the starting point, we need to identify from the literature or from our own readings that the association is mixed and we have conflicting results. This is the basic point. It's not needed to undertake a meta-analysis if evidence is clear. If from a reading of studies or something like this, we find that the association is positive and significant for almost 90% of studies, it's not needed to undertake a meta-analysis, okay? For a systematic analysis, and here I think that you refer to systematic review, it is we have a protocol to follow. We don't enjoy a lot of freedom like in literature reviews. In literature reviews, I can only summarize the finding of the paper, explain how I have identified collected paper, and I provide a summary and a critical thinking about the research stream. But in systematic analysis or systematic, let's say systematic review, here we need to illustrate, first of all, the criteria used to include to exclude the study. Formulate a research question. Summarize the theory used to tackle this topic. Summarize the main methodology used, the proxy used. Then, when it comes to results, I have to present the results in a table in a well-defined way. And there is a paper in AAAG, I don't know, I will maybe provide it, send it to Ahmed, that explains clearly how to undertake a systematic review, and I will forward it to Director Ahmed, inshallah, so that he puts it available for you.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sumaya. Dr. Hichem, I have a quick question. May you tell us what is the minimum number of study for meta-analysis?
It's not defined. It's not defined, but always, if we want to undertake meta-analysis, it is preferable that we have above 20 studies. 20 studies, so that when we undertake subgroup meta-analysis or test for moderating effects, it will gives us the opportunity to have large subsample with quite high number of studies. And this is why I have urged you, if you want to conduct meta-analysis, to collect either high ranked papers, decent ranked papers and either unpublished paper, then so that you get a good number of studies. Then of course you need to show a table, to include a table in your study to explain the criteria used to include or to exclude. Sometimes we collect a study, but we don't find, but this study has a descriptive aspect. We don't find effect size that is needed to integrate this study. Thus, we need to exclude it. In some of my meta-analytic research, especially that published with Professor Kamran Ahmed and Karen Sharma, dealing with IFRS adoption effects, we have presented things like this to illustrate how to include or exclude studies in meta-analytic work. Okay. But always, I urge you, first of all, if you are going to build in a previous meta-analysis, we have two hypotheses. Either we have a previous meta-analysis and I want to extend it. Here, if you will not include at least the double of the number of the previous meta-analysis, please don't do anything.
Yeah, because of the contribution of the paper.
And then you should identify new moderating effects beyond which has been done, so that your contribution will be well appreciated and easy. You can get your paper published in B or A journal. I'm sure you about this. And it is always better to capture and identify a new meta-analytic research field which has not been summarized before. And this will give rise to your contribution, of course, and the acceptability of your paper in A, I assure you, A, and why not ITAR journal, if the paper is well motivated, well written, and with good and nice analysis. And of course, if you want to target an A journal, you should think about meta-analysis like this, and why not meta-regression.
Thank you. Abdullah Abdelilah, your mic is off. Abdelilah. Abdelilah. Rehab. Azma.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes, Azma.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much for the presentation. It was really, really nice and informative. I just want to ask, how can we use meta-analysis in qualitative studies? As you said, meta-analysis is usually a part of a systematic review. So that is mostly used in quantitative studies. So if we want to use in a qualitative studies, so how can we use?
Well, thank you for the question. It is quite difficult to use meta-analysis in qualitative studies, but maybe if you have softwares that are available and that are able to let's say to read and analyze texts within, for example, but it will be a descriptive meta-analysis here. Huh?
Okay.
It will be a descriptive meta-analysis to try, for example, to count for the number of sentence that give the impression of something, for example, for accountant and or auditor or external auditor, and whether or not they are dependent or independent within emerging economies. Okay. That's if you have a software that is able to read and summarize and identify some keywords, this will be very interesting. This will be very interesting to summarize a set of study dealing with qualitative, but it will be a descriptive. When I say descriptive, for example, with respect to the interpretation of the results or the word said by the interviewed auditors, for example, let's say they use, for example, the term independence how many times, for example, or they speak out about let's say the trade-off between professionalism and commercialism in their work, how many times, whether or not the situation is the same when we go, for example, from Jordan to UK, or from KSA to Canada, or from Spain to Egypt, for example. Thus, it will be descriptive in its sense, but we can always make a very good and very concise descriptive meta-analysis, and you can consult here management accounting research in this regard. They have conducted meta-analytic works with descriptive aspects, not really calculation and so on and so forth, since we don't have the same methodology, the same proxy, and so on and so forth. In this regard, it will be a mixture between systematic, meta-analytic, descriptive work. Okay?
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ozma. Abdul Kamil Muammari. Abdul Kamil. Jinan Muhammad. Your mic mute. Your mic is mute.
Thank you, Dr. Ahmad, and thank you, Dr. Hichem, for the presentation. My question is, meta-analysis, it is classified as a research article or review article?
It is in the middle. It is in the middle. It is a review article at the first stage when we are still in the overall meta-analysis. But some new and very interesting result may emerge after conducting moderating effects. It is at the first stage, when I say overall meta-analysis, it is a review study. I want to understand whether or not the situation is significant, negative, and significant near zero relationship. But once we go to moderating effects, once we go to study potential moderators, here we are closer to cross-country investigations. And once we tackle meta-regression, here it is a real cross-country investigation, but instead of taking one observation I will summarize all observation in one study to consider them as one observation, one meta-analytic observation. Did you understand? Thus, at the beginning, it is a literature review, but using a statistical way. It is a statistical tool to summarize a set of articles. It is a review. But once we go to moderating effect and to study moderating effects, here it becomes a real cross-country investigation. Okay. That's it. It is a mixture between the two. And as you can see, in accounting, for example, just I give this example, why we don't find a large number of studies published in top 5 A-star journal in accounting. Since in accounting, always the first study published in one research topic is accepted in accounting review, for example. Then the second study will not be accepted in the same journal, since already we have explored this topic. Okay, this is a difficulty to get a meta-analysis accepted in a journal. But now, and meta-analytic researchers are aware about this. This is why they have developed this new way to tackle and to explore research topic, so that with meta-regression, it will become like a cross-country investigation. And cross-country investigation is well acceptable research methodology in top accounting, management, marketing, and everywhere.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you, Jinan. Omar Hussein.
Yes. Assalamu alaikum, and thank you for this presentation. I have one question. I already published a paper in systematic review in healthcare, and I know the procedure for writing paper in systematic review. We define the keyword, we collect the papers, we do the inclusion and exclusion criteria, then we propose our taxonomy. After that, we publish some statistics related to the country of authors, to the number of databases, paper that already collected, and then we go finally to the discussion part to discuss the recommendation, benefit, and challenge. My question is, what are the key differences between this work for systematic review and meta-analysis? What should I add to my procedure for systematic review I said I have a meta-analysis research? Thank you.
Thank you. First of all, as I have said, the starting point is you have a conflicting evidence for some research area or some research stream in your systematic review. If you are examining only one association in your systematic review, thus you should go through and say whether or not you have a clear evidence, positive association, negative association, or there are conflicting evidences. And in this case, you should go and progress with your work to add a statistical analysis. Of course, once again, if studies summarized in your systematic review include variables that allow you to compute the effect size. I remember one time in a paper in Journal of Accounting Literature, one reviewer has required that we, beyond the narrative review, we conduct a meta-analytic, but the number of study was very limited for each stream of research. And the problem that the proxy used for the explanatory variable was not the same across countries and this was a great difficulty to conduct a meta-analysis beyond the narrative aspect of our literature review. Of course, it is always good, and ideally, we go systematic review, we identify conflicting evidence, and we conduct the meta-analysis, and this will be an excellent paper. Okay, but this is not always the case, since if you have, for example, mixed evidence for 10 studies, with 10 studies, it's not always good to conduct a meta-analysis. Maybe you should wait for a few time, 1 or 2 years, and you should be aware about the number of studies published in this regard, and you go through this. Several times I have an idea to conduct meta-analysis, and then I go only to literature review. Why? Since we don't have sufficient materials in terms of a number of studies, in terms of conflicting results, to be able to present a good, nice meta-analysis that may complement your effort with respect to systematic review.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Omar. Muhammad Al-Sayed.
Thank you, Dr. Ahmed and Dr. Hichem. I have 3 simple questions very quickly. The first is about the degrees of freedom mentioned in the calculations or the equation. I'm not sure from where should we obtain this degree of freedom.
Yes.
Is it from the result reported in the studies or from our analysis? The second is also related to the first question, which is about the data collection. Should we manually collect the data from the published studies we use in our analysis, or there is another way to collect our data? And finally, for my understanding, this is a new discipline completely to me. So what I understand from the presentation is that we should go through the equations mentioned in the presentation to calculate some statistic estimates. And my understanding is this should be done for each study separately. My question here is that to get the overall conclusion, what should we do? Should we calculate at the end, for example, the mean of the estimated statistics, or what should we do? Thank you.
Okay, good. For the degree of freedom, of course, if you don't have a direct effect size, which is the Pearson correlation, you should go to to convert T statistic into Pearson correlation. How T squared divided by T squared plus degree of freedom, the square root of this value. The degree of freedom is the sample size minus the number of parameters to be estimated in one equation. Thus, for each model, you should do the following. If you don't have, of course, the effect size, and you should go through, you should collect the T statistic from the study and use this formula to convert it into an effect size. You should look to the sample size. You count the number of parameter. When I say parameter, it is the number of explanatory variable plus the constant, and the sample size minus the number of parameter to be estimated, I mean number of explanatory variable plus the constant, will give you the degree of freedom. This is for the first question. For the second question, just data collection, please, can you repeat to respond you directly? Ahmed.
Muhammad Sayed, can you repeat your second question, please?
Yes, I'm not sure if Dr. Hichem can hear me or not.
Yes, he can.
Yes, I hear you.
Yeah, thank you. I'm asking, so for the data collection, should we manually collect this data from the reported results in every paper we use in our analysis? So okay.
Yes.
So,
for each study collected, you should go through the results, analyze the results, determine the sample size, determine the effect size, the measurement for the dependent variable, the measurement for the explanatory variable, and the country of the study, or it is a cross country, and so on and so forth. This information is will be variable, since especially when you are going to study moderating effects, okay, dealing with country characteristics, for example, okay. Thus, you should get a clear picture about each study. When I mean what I mean by each study, effect size, sample size, time period, you should mention in the Excel data sheet everything that will be helpful to proxy for example, to allow you to get a moderating effect. I give you here an example of a recent published study with respect to gender and performance, published in Strategic Management Journal. It is an ITAR journal in management. Here, when you take from the study the country, we have a gender discrimination index. Thus, if you get the country, you will get for the country the gender discrimination index, and thus you will undertake moderating effects with respect to gender discrimination effects. Okay?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's clear to me. And my final question, if your time permits, is the overall conclusion. So after, how to draw up the final conclusion based on the all studies included in my analysis. And thank you.
Okay. For the overall meta-analysis, of course, you will say the association is positive, negative, or insignificant, or near zero relationship, and you will test for the homogeneity, whether or not it is homogeneous or not, to go to more refined analysis with respect to moderating effect. But when we are going to test for moderating effect, this is the most important thing in meta-analysis, since we will say, for example, that the association between firm performance and social and environmental disclosure is more prevailing, is significant and positive only under long-term orientation for long-term orientation countries. And this is not the case for short-term orientation countries. This is very delicious. Look, here we have performance, firm performance, social and environmental expenditure, then social and environmental disclosure about this action, okay? Try to think with me. For a country where we have a short-term orientation, I don't care about this. But for a country where we have a long-term orientation, I mean a stakeholder orientation, this association will be for sure positive. And they have stated an hypothesis for this, and they have documented statistically that this hypothesis is true. And this is a very, very interesting result from a managerial perspective for foreign investors who, since we have a green investor worldwide now and other type of investors, okay? Then for this type of investors, if they are going to choose, they are going to go to countries characterized by, for example, long-term orientation. Similarly, if the investor is for gender equality and so on and so forth. He will choose countries with lower level of gender discrimination. And he will be sure that if we are in a country like this, if we have appointed, for example, a woman in the board of director, firm performance will be good. Okay? Of course, here from an investor perspective, but we can go through a managerial perspective. That's the most delicious, and I repeat it once again, most delicious thing in meta-analysis is to identify moderating effect and to try to see that the association for high investor protection level is significant, but for low investor level, it's no longer significant. I give you another example for mandatory disclosure. Ahmed and Curtis, mandatory and versus voluntary disclosure. For Ahmed and Curtis, in the first meta-analytic, most famous meta-analytic research in accounting, they have documented that audit firm have a positive effect in mandatory disclosure, but it has not the same effect in voluntary disclosure. And this is very logic. Since audit firm has the duty to investigate, to audit, to verify, to check only mandatory information and not voluntary information. Of course, this was during the last 2 decades, but things are changing now, I think.
Thank you so much. Dr. Hichem, can we have 15 minutes?
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. Bilal?
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
Thank you so much for this nice presentation. I just want to ask Dr. Hichem about if he can suggest an important area for meta-analysis in earning management, because the result in earning management is almost inconsistent, and that is because of the different perspective of earning, whether it is good or bad. So I would appreciate if you suggest any an interest area for real earning management. Thank you.
Yeah, I will suggest to read about real earning management. Maybe real earning management, it is a new research topic in earning management, and try to link it to new trends with respect to board composition. For example, let's say board member expertise, whether or not we have an auditor. Also, one topic that has not been summarized is earning management in general and the cost of finance. This topic has not been summarized before. I'm not planning to summarizing it, be sure about this. But this topic is not subject of, I don't really see any meta-analytic work dealing with this subject. Maybe if there are sufficient number about of studies concerning this topic, maybe it is very worthy to conduct a meta-analytic work dealing with earning management, real earning management, and cost of finance. This is very interesting for policy makers, investors, and from also managerial perspective.
Thank you so much, bro. Thank you so much.
Good luck.
Thank you, Bilal. Dr. Hichem, I have a number of questions regarding if there is a special software for meta-analysis.
Yeah, a new Stata software, a new version of Stata software include some options to conduct meta-analysis, meta-regression, okay? Thus, try to get a new Stata software, new version of Stata software, and I will send for you YouTube videos, for you YouTube videos, so that you use them, okay? But for me, I am from old generation maybe, and I have always developed my own calculation and formula using Excel, but you have also Meta-Easy with CG software, you can download it. But I urge you really to get a new version of a Stata software, and this statistics software you will find some sites linked specifically to meta-analytic work, meta-analytic regression, and meta-analysis. Just you have to go through the video linked to them to understand how to use and to apply this technique using Stata software.
Thank you, Dr. Hichem. Dr. Mariam Al-Inizi.
Thank you, Dr. Hichem. I will just summarize
Mariam, your voice not clear.
Analysis.
Your voice is not clear.
Mariam, your voice is not clear. Try to repeat, please, your question.
Okay. First, thank you very much of you. The question is, correct me if I'm wrong, right? What I understand from Meta and that I choose the topic, I scan the paper and see what is the analysis, if it's significant and which is not clarified. So if, let's say an example, if I want to study like the firm size, and I find different paper study firm size in different cities. So do I include them or not?
Just, I have heard the part of the question, firm size, it is proxied using different measures. The voice was not really clear. Mariam, can you
repeat it, Mariam? Your voice, it was cutting actually. It's not clear.
Yes. Try to write the question to Ahmad and he will send it to me. I will respond to you. Huh?
Yes. I think it will be better because the sound is not.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mariam. Dr. Sausan. دكتور سوسن ما شاء الله صفاقس كلها هني. دكتورة سوسن. Your mic is mute, Doctor.
Okay.
Hello, thank you, Dr. Ahmed, for the organization of this seminar. Thank you, Dr. Hichem, for this interesting presentation. My question is about criteria that we can and should consider when we collect data or we consider the collected studies, which is that the studies should have the main or the same or the close approach. So what do you mean with close approach?
Yeah, good.
For example, can we exclude the international study because they already take into account the country level, for example.
Okay, good. The same, what I mean by the same approach, I give you here an example. We have, for example, for value relevance literature,
yes,
we have two models, price model and return model. All study that I should include for value relevance literature should use either this or the second model or both of them. If I find a study or I identify a study dealing with value relevance, but it is not using the same methodology, in this case, I should remove it. Okay? When I say the same approach, it is same approach in reporting results. And if the paper does not report, for example, univariate analysis and moves directly to multivariate analysis, the essential thing, the critical thing here is to find out sufficient data to be able to compute the effect size. And you have quite the same dependent variable and a closed explanatory variable. For example, if we are dealing with voluntary disclosure and I have a paper dealing with the quality of mandatory disclosure, automatically I have to remove it. Since my research question deal only with voluntary disclosure, okay? And so on and so forth. That's, for example, for audit committee, sometimes they use the number of independent director. Sometimes they use the existence of audit committee. Sometimes they use the number of executive directors. Here, if the number of study is not sufficient, I can take all these measures to proxy for a variable which is called audit committee. Then I make a subsample dealing with each proxy alone. Okay. A similar thing for earning management, real earning management. We have a lot of models. Yes. Sometimes we don't have the same model to proxy. For example, the classic approach is I have a model, I determine the residual. But in some models, we have other proxies, for example, whether or not the variation is close to 0 or not. In this case, it's not really the same proxy and the same approach used. And maybe I should keep aside this study for future meta-analysis if I have a sufficient number of available studies. Belay Ahmed, Sausan, it is okay?
Yes, only for the international studies.
No, we include them, but for moderating effect dealing with country characteristics, we remove them from the analysis, since I cannot, for example, if I have 10 or 20 or 60 countries, I remove them when it comes to study the moderating effect linked to country characteristics. Okay. For example, the level of investor protection.
Okay, thank you very much.
Ahmed, play the question of Mariam, if she has written it for you.
Sure, I will check. Anis? Anis, your mic is off. Anis?
Anis, go ahead.
Yes. Now we can't hear you, Anis. Hello?
Hello?
Okay, last two questions. Bahia?
Please just remind Miriam about her question so that
Sure. I sent her a message. Bahia, your mic is mute. Bahia, your mic is mute. Sameh? Sameh?
Oui, you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Ahmad Alqatan, for the organization of this webinar. And thank you very much, Dr. Hichem, for this very interesting presentation. So my question is about step 2, data collection. Dr. Hichem, you have said that we identify published and unpublished works associated with the topic that for which we carry out a meta-analysis. Yeah. So my question, what do you mean by unpublished studies? Do you mean more recent working papers listed, for example, at CCRN, or even old study? Can we base our meta-analysis on unpublished study? How to select these studies, and are there any criteria? Because perhaps we can use studies that are not rigorous and so on. And thank you very much.
Okay, good. Samah, look here, we don't have to make any criteria for selection. If the study, either it is published or not published, we need to include it. Either it is in SSRN working paper, and sometimes when you go, when you are preparing your meta-analysis, for example, a project that takes 1 year, at the beginning it is a working paper, and at the end you will find it as a published paper. Here you should take in account, you should pay attention about this. But here we need to collect all unpublished studies dealing with a topic that we are interested in, and of course published studies. Why? Regardless, if we are going to test for the quality of review process, once we go to publication quality test, and as I have said, we are going to subgroup our overall sample on 2-3 subsample, which are high quality journals, which require and go through a very rigorous review process, A star and A journals, B and C journals, and then other journals and unpublished studies. Okay, but pay attention please, since sometimes one meta-analytic research could take from its first day of its from the starting point to the acceptance point in a journal, for example, 2 years. During these 2 years, several papers in SSRN may become accepted paper and either published paper, and thus in this case you should take into account this point to adjust your data during the analysis at the end of normally during the final round during the revision. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, Mariam, question regarding the when if she went to collect the papers, and she her question actually if the variable change the measurement, also she need to add it in the paper or no?
Yes.
So the
Yes.
same measurement but different. Sorry, same variable but different measurement.
Look, she has asked me about corporate size, for example. Corporate size, we have a wide range of measurements.
Correct.
Log of total assets, of market capitalization, of total sales, of number of employees, what else, turnover, and so on and so forth. Thus, we have a wide range of measures to proxy for corporate size. Okay, in this case, we include all of them. And either if the study reports, for example, 2 or 3 proxies, if one study reports 1 or 2 or 3 proxies, we include 3 observations from the study to be able later on to make a subsample analysis based on the proxy used to measure corporate size, for example. And I don't know whether some measurement of corporate size are stakeholder oriented measure, like for example number of employees. The other are market oriented measure, like for example total sales, market capitalization. Thus this measurement may sometimes indicate an economic meaning, and this is why we need to take all of them at the beginning in the overall meta-analysis, then go through subgroup meta-analysis to understand and to try to identify divergence, and maybe we will find that the association will become significant in some cases, and this will be very interesting results.
Thank you, Dr. Hichem. The last question, Fatima. Fatima, please. Your mic is mute.
Hello?
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 Hello? Do you hear me?
Yes.
Very well.
First of all, I want to thank Doctor for the interesting and insightful presentation. I have one question is about studies that are published in predatory journals. Can we include them in our analysis?
I have said this from the beginning. I have called this the rest of story. You know, the rest of story of journals. Yes, we include them.
Yeah.
Although they, since we have already controlled for high quality journals, then decent journals, B and C journals, other journals, and finally unpublished studies. Okay. Thus, we have to test for quality, publication quality. We have 3 main groups. High quality that go through very rigorous review process. Decent journals, B and C, and here I am speaking according to IBDC journal ranking. IBDC journal ranking, you have to mention your ranking choice. If it is ABS, you should say, I am making the ranking according to ABS journal ranking. If you are more with ABDC, thus in your writing up, in your analysis, you should mention this clearly. And of course, the rest of the journal, predatory journal, and of course, journal that we pay money, just we pay money and we get the paper accepted. I don't want to speak about this, but we include them in our analysis. And the results, of course, the most important result is the association. Look, if the association is stable for A and A star journal, decent journal, be sure that the association will be significant.
Okay, thank you.
Since
I get
some journals, some A star journals require, once you submit your paper, to submit also your database. And this process is undertaken, for example, by Journal of Accounting Research, Accounting Review, and so on and so forth. Okay, thus you should submit your paper, your database, and your statistical analysis to be transparent. Okay.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Hichem, thank you so much for your time and your effort. I have actually more than 33 questions. We can't continue, I know. We take more than what we ask you. Thank you all for joining ITAR Group. Please don't forget, when you leave the meeting or the webinar, the site, it will take you to the survey. So please, the survey, it will take approximately 30 seconds. So please do it. The next seminar in next Friday, it will be by Professor Sabri Abu Bakr from Tunisia as well. He worked in Paris, about how to avoid desk rejection in peer academic journal. One of the hot topic. I think all of you will benefit from his topic. Thank you again, Dr. Hichem, for your time, and thank you all. See you next week.
One final word before leaving. Sure. Thank you very much for your question and for all participants for this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam. Guys, if anyone have a question for me, regarding the certificate, this seminar doesn't have a certificate. Regarding the PowerPoint, I will ask Dr. Hichem if we can, if he want to share the PowerPoint with you.
Another point. Yeah. These slides are mainly based in my paper published in Journal of Accounting Literature, a review of meta-analytic research in accounting. Thus, this is the summary. If they want to go with the refined information and so on and so forth, I urge them to consult the paper published in Journal of Accounting Literature by me and Professor Karen Shalmer in 2015. Okay, thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you. Alaikum assalam. Guys, if you want to register for the next seminar, you can buy the Facebook, my account in Facebook and LinkedIn. Same thing, Ahmad Alqatan, same user. Also via the survey that when you leave the meeting, it will directly take you to the survey. Please write your email address, and I will send you. The link for registration. Thank you so much, and see you next week. So.